broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And I'm talking to you after a 3-1 away win in the first leg against Olympiacos. The team who obviously knocked us out last year. The team that broke our hearts last year. And we have got a really good first leg result here, which is really encouraging. If not, the performance wasn't incredible, the result was, which in Europe and in cup competitions is the main thing. But we will get into exactly what happened, because there was a lot that happened yesterday. And obviously the time I'm recording, which is very early on Friday morning, it's fresh on my mind, so there will be quite a bit to talk about here. But let's start like we always do, and with the team lineup. So Bernd Leno started in goal with Bellerin, Luiz, Gabriel, who came in for Mari, and Kieran Tierney at left back. And Bellerin came in for Chambers as well. And then basically everything else was the same. So Partey and Xhaka in midfield, Saka, Odegaard and Willian with Aubameyang up front. Now my first question was, I'm not 100% sure why Willian is starting instead of Pepe. I thought Pepe has looked dangerous whenever he's played for Arsenal in 2021. So I thought he was a bit unfortunate not to start this game. But I think Willian repaid the manager's faith here. I think he actually played pretty decently. I don't think he was spectacular, but I think he done well, and he's definitely in some decent form. I'm not going to say he's incredible. I'm not going to say he's worth the money that we've paid for him, and he's not worth keeping here for 3 years sort of thing. But he repaid the manager's faith in him, and that's all you can ask from a player really, is when I or anyone else question a decision, that the player themselves steps up, and that's what he did. But enough about Willian, let's get into the actual performance. So we started really well, and we actually had a very big chance within the first 2 minutes. And it was Martin Odegaard who had got a ball crossed by him by Kieran Tierney. And Odegaard was basically on the penalty spot and shot wide. It was an extraordinarily bad miss. He knows he could have done better. He knows he should have done better. And it was a feature of the first 15 to 20 minutes. We dominated them. If not creating amazing clear-cut chances, we were still creating chances. We still had the Aubameyang chance, which was a really good cross from Bellerin. He headed it. It came off Socrates' shoulder, and the keeper makes a fantastic save. So you're thinking, well, we should be ahead here, and is it going to cost us like it has so many times this season? I think with this now, I think Arsenal are now dominating games, but just not scoring and not being clinical enough. And I think it does beg a question if another goal scorer in the lineup should be brought in. Now, I'm not saying Lacazette should be brought in. I mean a new signing, preferably from the wing, who can bag 10 goals. I know Pepe can do that, but it's clear that the manager doesn't trust him, so it would be good to have another player who can grab some goals for us. I just don't think we should be relying on Aubameyang completely, even if Aubameyang didn't score in this game. But he had a few chances as well. I mean, he had that free kick after the header, and it was straight in the keeper, even if it was powerful. But we started the game well, and I was impressed with us. And it wasn't long after that we got a goal that we deserved. And it wasn't through some incredible football. It wasn't because of lovely skill by a player. It was an absolute rocket. And I think that's the story of this game, is that all 3 goals were fantastic. They were highlight reel goals, really, because they were incredible strikes. And this one from Odegaard, who picks up the ball and just smashes it with his left foot from about 35 yards, I'd say. It's moving. It's incredibly well here. I think BT Sport pointed out at half-time and at full-time that the shot was travelling 60 miles per hour, so you know how fast it was. The keeper in goal, Sarr, I think you can question if he should have saved it, but because of the movement in the air and the speed of travel, I just think it's a really good hit. And Odegaard to open his account for Arsenal, he should have opened his account earlier, obviously with the better chance he had. But, I mean, what a way to open your account. It was an absolute screamer. And we were deservedly ahead. But the problem with this Arsenal side currently is that even though we're deservedly ahead and we create good chances, at any moment we can shoot ourselves in the foot. And just before half-time, we were very close to actually giving a goal away. And it was, again, playing out from the back. Luiz received the ball from Leno. He then passes it into Olympiacos' player. And I think it was Mazuras who shoots wide. He probably should have scored. And if you're me, you're thinking, okay, we've got away with that. It's a warning shot. Let's go out and get a second away goal. Let's really go after him here. Obviously, having one away goal was great, but I think getting as many away goals as possible is what we should be aiming for in Europe. And I'm concerned about Arteta in terms of how he sets up in Europe. I know it is crucial to try and keep it tight. I just think trying to get as many away goals as possible is probably the best thing to do. And I know this is coming after we did score 3 away goals, but I think the performance after half-time until basically Gabriel scored the second, I think it was poor. So that was 30 minutes of the game we were poor. I don't think we were trying to go forward that much. I don't think we were showing that much intent going forward. We were punished again, and this is the difference between how we play, because we play such fine margin football and it's difficult to accept that sometimes. But the goal we conceded, again, it was El Arabi, the person who broke our hearts last year. And unlike the weekend when playing out of the back, where I blamed the player who received the ball instead of Bernd Leno, I blame Bernd Leno this time. Only because I think I've watched it about 5 times now. I think when Leno gets the ball, just passes to David Luiz on the right. He's in acres of space. He's got Bellerin in front of him. Even if Luiz does hold the ball too long, he's not in a dangerous position where if he loses the ball, it could be a goal. Now, obviously, what doesn't help here is Bernd Leno's positioning, because obviously he's come quite far out to pass the ball out from the back, which is completely fine. But he just makes the wrong pass. And obviously, Dani Ceballos doesn't help himself here with his miscontrol. He takes a bad touch. It doesn't help. And Ceballos obviously deserves some of the blame because he's the one that gave the ball away. That's 2 Europa League games in a row now that he's cost us. But it was just poor all round. And I know I was having discussions about this on Twitter, about this and about playing out from the back. it's such a high risk, high reward strategy, but the only way you're going to get good at it is if you just continue to play it. And I think we just have to continue playing it. There will be a lot of fans who will be screaming at me right now, who will be saying we should hoof it long in this instance. But it just doesn't help in this instance. I just don't think it helps in general if we just hoof it up long. For a start, we don't have a target man centre forward. Aubameyang's not likely to win many headers. But also, I just think we're set up to play out from the back much better. I mean, our central midfielders, I know Partey went off, but our central midfielders in terms of Xhaka and Partey are really good at progressing the ball forward. They're competent on the ball. That's their skill set. They're not tough tackling midfielders. All four of our central midfielders, all four of our number 6s or 8s, if you will, are all great passers of the ball and are all great at keeping possession. And that's what you need when you're passing out from the back. But we are just putting ourselves in so many bad situations. Ceballos, in his positioning when he receives the ball from Leno, has 4 Olympiacos players surrounding him in a box. And obviously he can play a quick pass to Luiz on the right, but because his touch is not good, it's too risky. You play the safer ball there. You play it to David Luiz, who he doesn't even have to go to Bellerin down the line. Luiz could come back to Leno because he's effectively taken 2 Olympiacos players out of the game, because it's not like Ceballos, who's surrounded by 4 in a box. Luiz is only going to be pressed by 2 of them, really. But if Luiz doesn't feel confident with passing it to Bellerin down the line, he can always go back to Leno, who can facilitate the ball back to Gabriel on the left. And I just don't think we helped ourselves here. It was just a very poor decision and it cost us. And at 1-1, I and many Arsenal fans were not feeling good about ourselves. I didn't think we started the second half very well. I don't think we were playing well. And that goal rocked us. I think for a while we weren't playing well at all. And a lot of fans were calling for attacking substitutions. We wanted Pepe, we wanted Lacazette, we wanted Martinelli on. These were substitutions that we called for. But luckily, we started to come into our own within the last 10 minutes. And it's very similar to the Burnley game where we finished very well. And the goal we score here, the second goal, was very well needed. We needed another away goal. I didn't want to go into the second leg with a 1-1 draw like the Benfica game. We needed a second away goal at least. And we got it here. And it was a corner taken. Willian receives the ball. He puts a cross in. And Gabriel, with an incredible leap, and he heads it past the keeper, and it was just an incredible header. It was one of the best headers I've seen. I mean, Arsenal players have scored some great headers. I mean, if you're thinking of Bentner versus Spurs, you're thinking Sanya versus Spurs, Giroud versus Manchester United, Mertesacker versus Spurs as well. There are a lot of fantastic headers, and this is right up there. He absolutely towers over his opponent to get this ball in. It's a fantastic header. And to be honest, Gabriel was fantastic on the night as well. There is a debate about who should be playing in terms of Gabriel and Mari, because I think both of them have been fantastic for Arsenal this season. I think Gabriel more so than Mari, because Mari's obviously been injured for a bit. But Gabriel justified his place here and justified it with a great performance. I mean, I've got some stats here. He had 91% pass accuracy, 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 clearances, 2 block shots. He won 3 out of his 4 ground duels and 2 out of his 2 aerial duels. He was an absolute monster on the night. And this is an absolute bargain of a signing when you think about it. Arsenal paid, I think it was about 25 million for Gabriel. And when you're looking at some of the fees that have gone around for other centre-backs that Arsenal have signed, if you think about Mustafi for 35 million, it's an absolute bargain, an absolute snip, and he's been terrific for us. And this game was a really welcome return to form. He obviously dipped when he got COVID. He obviously had to take a step out of the team. But then when he came back against Southampton in the FA Cup, he was a bit rusty. But he's just so reliable. And that's what you want from a centre-back. We haven't had that in years, I think. I mean, when you think of Mustafi, you think of Luiz, these are centre-backs that can put you in massive trouble. But Gabriel has done fantastic, and I'm really happy with his performance, especially last night, and it was a great goal. And at this stage, it was 2-1. Now, before this goal, I have to mention that Mohamed El Neni was preparing to come on. Now, Arteta made a triple change at this point. Obviously, in Europe, you're allowed 5 changes this season. And he made a triple change at this point. But the BT Sport camera only caught El Neni coming on. And me, like many other fans, were not very happy that this was the change Arteta was coming on with. I mean, when you need a goal, to bring on El Neni is not really the smartest thing to do. Now, obviously, Arteta also brings on Emile Smith-Rowe and also brings on Nicolas Pepe. But at the time, and me and a lot of fans, we didn't see Smith-Rowe and Pepe coming on till Gabriel had scored the second. So I think a lot of fans were not happy with this change. And obviously Arteta has got criticised a lot for his changes this season. His changes in general. I don't think he's incredible at it. But I think we all owe Mohamed El Neni a massive apology, because 5 minutes after Gabriel's towering header, Mohamed El Neni thinks, I can do one better than that. And he scores an absolute banger from outside the box. Now, if you're an Arsenal fan, I urge you to watch this goal. Just because it's one of those goals that I think just gives you goosebumps in terms of the commentary is fantastic. Steve Bauer on commentary on the BT feed, he does a fantastic job, because not only does he say, surely not, and then his reaction is really genuine for the goal. It just makes it really a great goal. But also, not only is the technique from El Neni great, it's a swerving shot, but low, hard, goes into the corner. But also the celebration after the goal was fantastic. All the outfield players go to surround El Neni. It's just a really wholesome moment. I think a goal that Arsenal are going to remember for a while. It was a really important one, and it made us go 3-1 up. And we had deserved it at this point, because we had put the pressure on. Just before this goal, Bellerin put in a cross that went all the way across the line. I'm not sure how there wasn't anyone available to get a tap in there. We deserved this win. We deserved that third goal, because the performance has stepped up after that second goal. And maybe we could have had a fourth goal. I think there was a chance for Pepe, which was deflected. Lacazette came on next with Pepe very well. But full time, 3-1. Arsenal got the job done. In terms of XG, we were sort of lucky. It was basically 1-1 on XG, so we were sort of lucky. But the thing with XG is that sometimes you can get lucky. That's football. And I take a lot of weight into XG as a general rule of thumb to look at, to make sure that we are performing well and that we haven't been lucky. It's basically to affirm that my eye test was correct. And I think when I watched this game, I think we scored 3 incredibly great goals. But in terms of the performance, I think we were a bit lucky. Whereas the Burnley game on this weekend, I thought we were incredibly unlucky not to win. I thought we'd done much more than Burnley and we should have won the game by a comfortable margin. And XG backed that up. And I think that's the thing with XG, is that it just backs up your eyes really, and it can show you trends with this team. But sometimes this can happen, and I think in Europe, I think the most important thing is the result. I think in the league, yes, you want to look more at the process and you want to look if the team are on a good trend, and that's why you look at underlying metrics. And since Christmas, we have been on a good trend. The underlying metrics have been fantastic. Actually, not fantastic, they've been really good. But in this game, we didn't create a whole load. I mean, to be fair, we had 18 shots, 8 on target, but we created 0 big chances. So that tells you that we were sort of lucky to score 3 goals. But it's fine, the result is all that matters, and we now go into the second leg with a 3-1 advantage. And now Olympiacos have to score 3 goals to go through. 2 won't be enough because we would have a superior amount of away goals to them. So it's a great position to be in. They have to come at us now. 1 goal doesn't really change anything in terms of Olympiacos still have to score 3 goals. But to have a 3-goal advantage going into the second leg is something that we should be very happy with. So I am satisfied with that. But it also means for the second leg that we are going to go into it with confidence, but with a good lead. And it also begs the question that obviously we have a lot of games coming up in the next week and a bit. I mean, we have Spurs this weekend on Sunday, Olympiacos again at home, and then West Ham away, and then I think we have Liverpool after that. So there are a lot of games coming up that are going to be difficult, that are going to stretch this squad. I wouldn't be surprised to see rotation, but I've got a question on this as well. But in terms of this weekend, obviously it's a massive game. It's the North London derby. It's probably the biggest game of the season. For any Arsenal fan, you always look at where the North London derbies are, especially the home game, and this is the home game. Obviously, there are no fans, so it's going to be a bit different compared to the other Emirates games, because any North London derby at the Emirates, the fans are really up for it. They create a really good atmosphere, and obviously that's going to be missed. But hopefully we can produce a good performance. It's a shame that Spurs have got into form now. Kane's obviously been good all season. Son has been as well. But Gareth Bale is starting to get into a good rhythm now. He didn't start last night, so he's going to be relatively fresh. They came off a 2-0 win. They obviously didn't travel as well. So there's all these factors. It will be a very big game, and hopefully we can come out of it with some pride, with a really good performance, because these games are the ones that fans want to win, the fans want to remember. And Arteta hasn't won a North London derby. I know he's only managed 2, but still, the point stands. He needs to get that monkey off his back. He doesn't want to be the manager who never wins the North London derby. So hopefully we can do that this weekend. I mean, if we do win, we are 4 points behind them. I know it's not incredible position to be in, but a win is very important here. So it will be a very important weekend for us. So let's finish this podcast with some listener questions. We've got 2 today, so thank you for all your questions. Remember, you can ask them to me at AFC Met on Twitter. I usually post a tweet after the game. So the first question is from @GabbyEDH10. So thank you for your question. And she asks, how do we set up versus Spurs and then Olympiacos again? So this is a very good question. I think it's going to be very difficult. I think we're going to see rotation. I think we should probably rotate in the forward lines. Now, if I'm Arteta, I'm probably asking Saka and Aubameyang to do one more game this weekend. I think they should both start. But I would rotate some of the other players as well. Smith Rowe probably comes in for Odegaard and Pepe probably comes in for Willian. I think that's the rotation we should do. I think Partey coming off as early as he did probably means he's starting this weekend. He's going to be an important component against Spurs. Obviously, he's got some previous with Spurs in terms of what happened last time. He got injured and pushed back on the pitch by Mikel Arteta in the last game. He was rushed back for that game. So he's obviously going to be an important component for this game. In terms of other rotation, you'll probably see Mari get a game this week. I'm not sure if it will be this weekend. It could be this weekend, but Gabriel performed so well against Spurs that I don't know, maybe he will come in again. Rob Holding hasn't played for a few games now, so maybe he comes in again for here. And Cedric, obviously, he didn't play in the last 2 games, so maybe he plays against Spurs or maybe he plays against Olympiacos. I don't know. But these are appearances and these are rotations that we're going to have to do. Now that we've got a 3-goal advantage, I would try and produce more rotation for the Olympiacos game. You can't rotate that heavily against Spurs. You can do light rotation in terms of bringing some other faces in. Pepe, Smith Rowe. These are not changes that are going to actively hurt the squad. But I think if you rest Saka, for example, or if you rest Aubameyang, for example, I think these are changes that... So I would be trying to give Saka and Aubameyang a rest against Olympiacos in the second leg. I know that's the more important game, but with a 3-goal advantage, surely Lacazette and Willian can do a job. And I think that's what we've got to produce, and I think that's what we've got to do here. It's going to be interesting because obviously we have 3 games in a week and it's going to be a really tough period for us, but hopefully we can get some results. Obviously the Olympiacos game is probably the more important one at this stage, but just don't be surprised to see some rotation for the North London derby this weekend. But thanks for your question. And the last question is from @KitmanRamsey, and he asks, how long will Arteta last at the Arse? So, at Arsenal. Arteta will start as Arsenal manager next season. I think there's no doubt in my mind, even if we don't win the Europa League, which is going to be incredibly difficult, even if we don't finish in the top 6, again, going to be incredibly difficult, he will still be Arsenal manager next season. Now, if you're asking me if that's the right decision, I'm not sure, because I think Arteta does some good things, and I also think Arteta does some not so good things. I think substitutions, for example, are not his best thing. I also think sometimes he is too cautious with how he sets up teams. I think sometimes he's too happy to settle for a 1-0 win, where I think we should be going for a 2-0. We should be going for an extra goal. I think a lot of games are decided on fine margins, and obviously you can say that's because maybe we haven't got as much quality going forward. But I mean, when you look at the names, Pepe, Aubameyang, Saka, even Willian to a certain extent, we should be scoring more than 1 to 2 goals and we should be able to put teams to bed. Obviously, it's very difficult, and it's obviously easier said than done. And obviously, football's not played on paper. Arsenal may have great names, but this doesn't mean that these players all work together, all gel together. So it is a very difficult thing, and I have some sympathy. I think he was very close to the entire fan base losing faith with him between November and December. I think if he lost that Chelsea game and then the West Brom game, I think we would have been in a very, very bad way, and he probably would have been very close to getting the sack. But credit him, he's turned it around in terms of underlying metrics. Obviously, the results are not going to be incredible, and they haven't been incredible, but the underlying metrics have been much better since Christmas. We now have a coherent system. We are now playing in a consistent way. There seems to be a philosophy with this team. And obviously, sacking him now, when it just looks like Arteta is starting to find a groove with this team, would be harsh. I think he gets next season. But I think if we return to how bad we were pre-Boxing Day, I think he will have to get the sack because we were bad. We deserve to be 15th where we were in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next season. Obviously, Arsenal being 10th is not good enough. But when you look at the underlying metrics, we should be in a better position. We should, hopefully, with a full season of this system, of these players, maybe we can finish in the top 6, and then who knows where we can go. But it does look like we won't have Europe next season. That's on Arteta, really. And I think in a non-COVID world, I think he probably would have got the sack. But because he's a novice coach, I think he's going to be given a bit more time compared to if Carlo Ancelotti was the man hired instead. So to answer your question, really, I think he will be given next season, and depending on how we start, we'll decide if he gets another one and potentially a new contract. But if we start poorly, don't be surprised if he gets the sack. But thanks for your question. And that's the end of the podcast. So obviously, it was a really good night last night. The performance wasn't incredible, but the goals were. In terms of the result, it was fantastic as well. So a very happy me and a very good game to produce. But there's a big one this weekend. It's Spurs, it's a North London derby. Every Arsenal fan wants to win. They are terrified of losing that game. Hopefully we can produce an incredible performance and get an unlikely 3 points. But until then, come on you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?